So for this episode of Oops All Dragons, we have a brief trigger warning. There will be some mention of self-harm and childhood trauma. It's very brief. It's, as our friend describes her character creation process, and we talk about dealing with personal trauma through character creation and through playing the game. So if that's something that you'd rather not hear, we'll put in the show notes the exact timestamp if you want to skip over that. Otherwise, enjoy the show, and thank you for listening. Hey, what's up, you guys? It's another episode of Oops All Dragons. I am ever your host, Lisa, and that is
Varun.
Varun. That's Varun.
Hey.
That's who you are.
Yep.
Today we got a very special episode, the first of our guest episodes. Yes. Something that we've talked about before is that we want to get people on the show to talk about, their experiences playing the game. We don't want to just talk about, the stuff that I'm sure you've already heard other people tell you, like how to roll dice and add numbers. We want to talk about what that means for people. And today we've got someone who is very dear to both Varun and I. We've got Katelyn. Katelyn, what's your last name actually?
Marquard.
Hold on. I'm just realizing I don't know your last name. How am I supposed to properly introduce you? Listen, I don't ask people's last names.
We're keeping all of this in.
It's fine.
That's not for me to know.
Because this is going to come up
For
later.
like a year
This is
now.
going to come up in a later story, and that's fine.
Oh my god.
But yes,
This
Katelyn.
exact thing about my last name is going to come up in a later story, and it's going to be great. It's a very good time.
It's gonna be a callback. It's gonna be great.
We love callbacks.
But before we get into
Yes,
the oh, okay, yeah, no, go ahead.
I'm Katelyn
Let her
Marquard.
actually introduce yourself.
See, both times that she has said her last name, we have been talking over her.
I
Yeah,
wasn't.
let's get some clean
Yes, you
audio on that.
Whenever that first time was, I heard Caitlin's name, a year or so ago or more when we started playing. I didn't really need to ask
Wait,
after
no.
that.
Shh, wait. Give her the room. Give her the space, okay?
Of us
Anyway,
just,
who
not letting you
who's
introduce
are you? Who are you?
Oh, wait,
Okay. Hi, my name is Katelyn Marquard, and I'm their friend for some reason.
Yeah. And you're also one of the best Dungeons and Dragons players that we know. One of the best tabletop
my
role players that we
God.
know.
Definitely.
Which is why we wanted you to be our first.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So before we get into start picking your brain as to your history, let's what have we been up to? It's been a minute. What are you up to, Varun?
So I have been, I think I mentioned on the last podcast, playing through all the Super Robot Wars games. So I'm at one of the ones that actually has a translation, so it's taking way longer, because then I can't just speed through everything in Japanese. I don't actually read Japanese, but when it's in Japanese, I can ignore most of what's happening in the game and just focus on the strategy aspect of it. So there's that. Playing Mario 35, fun game, and running some stuff for a local gaming store that's slowly opening back up. Now that things are starting to get normalized through the play gear here, and yeah, we're actually running some. Not me specifically, I'm actually a player, but I'm helping organize some DMs running their own games instead of Adventures League, some homebrew stuff there. So that's what I've been up to. What about you, Lisa?
I'm just coming down from, it was my birthday this weekend. I've
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Because, of course, we can't really do anything. I just went around and spent a whole bunch of money on stupid things for myself. And one of those stupid things is a big box set of Curse of Strahd. So I'm going to actually read through that book. And it comes with a DM screen and a Taroka deck that's just got this beautiful art on it. And it's got this, silver engraving on the back. Gorgeous stuff. It comes with, hilariously enough, postcards, physical postcards, made out to look like inviting you to Barovia or the Bone Grinder or whatever it's called. It's really funny. So that I'm gonna, once I finish reading it and I decide who I want to play in it, when I want to run it, I'm gonna physically send out postcards to my players, and that's gonna be really funny. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Katelyn, remind me to get your address at the end of this.
Yes.
So,
I will
Can we dress
hand
up?
deliver.
Can we dress up in fancy dress?
Can you? It'll be a requirement.
it'll be a requisite.
Absolutely. What do you think this is? Do you think I've had vampire fangs sitting in a box somewhere in my room for no reason?
I've seen your vampire fangs.
Yeah, I know. I pull them out even at situations where there is no need for me to be wearing vampire fangs, but yet here I am.
Halloween, when it's not Halloween.
Halloween is when it's appropriate, and then I have definitely gone to a bar in July and then just reached into my pocket, pulled out my teeth, and popped them in. It happens.
It's a confidence booster is what it is.
Absolutely. Not being able to fully close your mouth absolutely activates something in your brain.
Okay.
Yeah. And it intimidates men.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't think, even though it's been out forever, I don't think any of us have actually played through Curse of Strahd all the way through. I've heard mixed things about it. Lisa, you're actually reading through the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
How's it? Yeah, what's your opinion on it so far?
I'm only a couple pages in it so far. After this, I'm probably gonna sit and try to get through another chunk of it. But there are some things that I definitely have some concerns about, some thoughts. Some things that I'm definitely going to have to tweak a little bit before I feel comfortable running it. Nothing so far that's specifically about the mechanics of the gameplay. Just certain, I guess you'd call it a story element. Just certain story elements that are very concerning for me. It's the Vistani. I'm talking about the Vistani. They're a group of people, a nomadic people that are very clearly just a different name for the racist caricatures that we know and love of Romani people. Yeah, it's cartoonish how tone deaf it is.
Yep.
So I'm going to have to go through,
Especially because it's something that was rewritten. This is the
revamped version.
Yeah, so it's this is something that you would think they're ooh, no, for the modern age.
Maybe we should fix
probably
this.
not.
Yeah, but who would ever accuse Wizards of the Coast of being tone deaf? And I've never heard of that.
I thought you were gonna say accuse them of being proactive.
Yeah, well, that's the non-sarcastic way of saying what. Yeah. So yeah, I just think it's funny because in the foreword, they have the original creator of the Ravenloft game talk about it because it was a game that they made just to play with their friends, and their friends were let's play the Ravenloft game, and then they published it as Ravenloft, and then it became they got brought into Wizards to and it became a part of the D&D thing, but it was published separately before. It's a whole thing. It's a whole story.
Kind of
but
Dragonlance thing.
Yeah, but as they were describing, like, they briefly described, like, the process that they went through to, like, create the game, and they described, like, doing all this research into classic vampire lore, and my mind's going, okay, so you read about how one of the first earliest, like, vampire stories is based on Lord Byron. It was written in the same, like, weekend trip that Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. Ooh, interesting, fascinating. But you didn't take, like, the 5 minutes of research to go, hey, is our Romani caricature harmful? Types that into Google. First answer, yes. They didn't do that. So I just think that's interesting. And it's something that I'm going to have to work around when I go to run it, because I just won't feel comfortable running it as is. Sure. At least with that element.
It'd be interesting to look at the revamped, and I'm using air quotes, the revamped version, and look at the old version and see what has and hasn't changed then.
Yeah.
Or if it's just repackaging.
Mm-hmm.
It may just be a repackaging, honestly.
In a nicer
they may have updated some of the, like, monster stat blocks and called it a day.
Yeah.
And maybe gave you a really cool looking
box.
Tombstone looking box or coffin.
I like boxes.
Listen, the presentation's amazing. It's a coffin, and you open it, and there's got a giant, like, it's got a big old image that, like, fits right in the coffin, so it looks like Strahd is sleeping in the coffin. It's beautiful, and on the back of that page is actually Strahd's stat block, so that's also handy. There's also a lot of fun handouts, like the letters and stuff that you can find throughout the game. Like, they have the physical, like, handouts.
Nice.
The maps, I'm gonna have to go through with, like, time and figure out these maps because they're a little convoluted, but I kind of love that. I mean, there's a lot about this that just, like, aesthetically really is pleasing to me. It's just, so far, the biggest red flag has been this Vistani thing. And as I go through, I'm sure I'm going to find other things that I'm going to complain about, because that's just who I am as a person.
No, I like it. I like hearing you complain about stuff. It's fun.
Yeah. That's what this whole thing's about.
Yeah, and how have those games been going there for you, Varun?
So, well, I don't know if we wanted to ask Katelyn what she's been up to.
Mostly working.
Is it working and playing in our games?
Yes, that's about it, yeah. Though I have been kind of playing with the idea of doing, like, a one-page RPG, because those usually make me laugh a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like the Honey Heist ones and stuff like that.
Okay.
Or the Dadlands. So I think that would be fun.
What is that?
Oh yeah, you play as dad stereotypes.
Oh my god, is it just Dream Daddy?
Is that the game?
No, because you're in, like, a wasteland.
Okay, there you go. There's the hook.
Yeah.
It's Fallout Dream Daddy?
Your dad's
I mean,
and you go to the store.
I mean, I don't know if you go to the store. I'd have to look at it, but I know those Mackle boys did them.
Okay. Okay, we're probably going to reference them a good bit, because I know they're your boys.
We'll get back to the Mackle boys.
Yeah. So, the games I've been running for my local store, been going good. We've got, like, 3 DMs rotating one every, other week, just to avoid DM burnout. That's kind of what happened with the last guy we had running. So, we've got that going. They're all pretty into the stuff that they're running, so that's great. And even 2 of them are husband and wife. So, they're running, like, a joint campaign. So, like, good on them. Half the work. So, it's been going pretty good. About, 5 weeks into it at this point. One thing did come up in the last session that I'm curious how the 2 of you feel about it. And it's discussion of meta information and in like crosstalk. And and then what is that line, and what's considered meta or not. Because in this situation, we've got a lot of new players who are coming into the store and wanting to play D&D for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to, explain, okay, these are your scores, and this is how they work, and this is how combat works, and yada, yada, yada. Where we've got more seasoned players who have played before, who definitely come from an Adventures League background. And what's going on there, there's definitely a little friction that we're going to just have to, talk through and work out. It's just, someone has to make a perception check for the group. Okay, who has the high, it normally in our games we just say okay, who has the highest perception, and we just say the score and move on because we know it's a game. And we know our characters would know in the world more than we know who is the best at tracking or noticing traps or whatever it is. Other players are very against that. Don't mention HP totals, don't mention ability scores or skill scores. That breaks their immersion, which, fair enough in a more intimate setting is what I'll say. But in this public setting where we've got a group who's just thrown together that week because that's who wanted to play or who could play, I think there's definitely consideration to make to be it's okay to let the new guy just talk about his scores, or direct him to say okay, this is what your perception is, and it's obviously higher than mine, so you can roll. On the flip side of that, in combat, using terms like bloodied or critical, whatever the book terms or the Adventure League terms are, to say oh, this thing is past half health or close to death, which are, it is extremely gamified terminology. Aside from saying how's the bad guy doing? Oh, it's been lacerated, it's been slashed, or it's been scorched by your spell or something like that. No, it's bloodied. And then the DM will say oh, it's bloodied, and then that same player will be okay, I know what to do now. So there's that shorthand that's acceptable for this player that I'm mentioning specifically, that's acceptable. But HP totals, he's the healer, and he'll go out of the way to say okay, so how's everybody looking? Don't give me your HP totals. I'm just what?
What's the point?
Yeah. So what do you two feel about something like that?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it really just sounds like that person maybe playing in a game store setting isn't the ideal setting for someone who would prefer to have the other player stats be more of a mystery and have that deeper sense of immersion. Mm-hmm. Maybe a game store game isn't really the type of game that's for them.
I've
it's really just a matter of communication, and as we always talk about, it's a matter of communication and setting up those expectations and saying, okay, yeah, this is a game store game. It's kind of about efficiency, and we just gotta get through it because we have a time limit.
I have played Adventure League before, and it did teach me how to play D&D, and I agree. I totally agree with what Lisa's saying, that it's I personally as a player don't really care if players kind of talk about their stats and stuff. I don't want to know about enemy stats, and I really don't think that any of my DMs, especially you, Varun, would be if it's what's their perception score, please?
I don't know. What's a perception score in this world? How can you point to that?
Because that brings up an interesting point about monks have extract aspects. You can straight up just know, he's got a high wisdom, or he's resistant to ice. Mm-hmm. Does that break your immersion when it's a literal ability?
Yeah, or does the DM have to say oh, because of their environmental, upbringing, their skin is
Yeah, you have to couch it in that sort of flowery language.
You
Do
know
you
what
have to
that-
couch it in prose?
You know what that feels like? Like you guys have said in a past episode, you guys talked about the Mercer effect. That feels like someone who has seen a little bit too much Critical Role and expects that level of immersion from everyone.
Yeah, but even in Critical Role, they'll sometimes be like, yeah,
No,
I don't know why you had.
They don't take it nearly as seriously as people think they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't know, sometimes, because like there is something to be said of like, there's the idea of like just because you have a low score in something doesn't mean that your character wouldn't try to do it. Like, just because your character's not dexterous doesn't mean that they wouldn't try to jump the fence. But like, or just because your character's not charismatic doesn't mean that they wouldn't try to talk their way out of something or into something.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for that like don't limit your role play based on your scores, but sometimes like that is a style of gameplay that is really more suited for long-term campaigns, more intimate settings where the cast isn't changing, there isn't a time limit, and you can explore that kind of stuff and you can do that kind of more fun stuff, because I admit that's what's fun, but it's really about the setting that you're in and the expectations of like that style of game. Yeah.
Adventure League is, and like those kind of like game store games, they're definitely more for teaching someone how to play D&D.
Yeah, more casual encounters.
And almost utilitarian.
Yeah. It is where I learned how to play D&D, but it's not really where I learned how to like enjoy it. Yeah, because it wasn't too enjoyable until I had gathered a group of friends that I got to play outside of those games.
You're not the first person we've heard who's had that opinion.
So that's a pretty good segue. So tell us, where did you learn to enjoy this game?
So I didn't play D&D before I got into it. Like a lot of people in the world these days, I heard about it through a podcast. And most people would think that would be Critical Role, because that's the big one. But nope, it was the other big one. It was Taz.
The Adventure Zone.
McElroys.
Those ding-dang McElroys. A friend of mine had sent me like a few clips from Monster Factory, and I was in stitches with like how funny these guys were. And their type of humor was really up my alley, and I wanted more content from them. And I ended up listening to the Adventure Zone about 3/4 of the way through. And I was enjoying it a lot, because it's like the difference between the Adventure Zone and Critical Role is like night and day. Like,
yeah,
the Adventure Zone is very much like they're there to have fun, and the rules of the game don't really matter as much.
Yeah, I mean, they're both there to have fun, but I think the McElboys are a little bit more irreverent about it.
Right, and it's very much great for people who are intimidated by the rules of D&D, and B, like the sheer size of Critical Role. Because when I got into Taz, Critical Role was about almost done with the first campaign also, and I just was like, I want to like this. It looks fun, but who has the time in this economy?
Absolutely.
That's about right. Yeah.
So, and also it was like on video, and I was like, well, I don't want to sit down and watch this. I just want to listen to something. So I was listening to it, and I was like, this is very fun, and this is like really, it's something that I feel like I could have fun doing too. I didn't really know where to go to do it though. Like, so I was just kind of like sitting there with a desire to play and nowhere to put it. So I started making characters. So I made my first character, And what I wanted to ask you guys is if you had ever talked about your first characters and how they related to you as a person. And if you had ever heard the myth that, like, your first character is basically you.
Yeah, that's definitely...
Yeah, I think we mentioned them, but I don't think we've actually gone into it. Go, Lisa. You have a better story than I do.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, no, mine is just, like, a little more convoluted, because it, like, depends if you're asking, like, first character, period, or first D&D character. My first D&D character was kind of a throwaway. I barely remember her. I know it was a drow... sorcerer, maybe? I remember very little about that character because I made her and played her in a
dark race spellcaster.
Yeah, I created her and played her in a game in which I was extremely inebriated for, so I can be forgiven. But long before that, I used to, in my early days on the internet, which it's embarrassing to say, but yeah, I was maybe like 10, 11 years old back in the days of fanfiction.net in the forums, and like you'd make your own characters that fit into some like existing franchise, and you'd go on the forums and you'd find people like role playing with their own original characters, and then it'd be a whole thing. So I was doing like the role play part of tabletop role play for a while before I even really knew what it was. And yeah, the characters that I used to make when I was little, like, they're definitely exactly what you'd expect from an 11-year-old girl who just reads a lot of fantasy novels. Very Mary Sue, very, like, overpowered, just the idealized perfect versions of yourself. It's very
That's normal. It's like kids trying to get a sense of control over themselves, I think.
Absolutely. But as for my first D&D character where I actually, like, sat and, like, hand wrote 3 pages of lore for, there's definitely a lot of myself and a lot of the things that I want to work through in myself in Dot, my tiefling warlock.
That you're still playing as today.
To this day!
We'll reach it into that story at some point. We'll
yeah, she'll come up.
For me,
what about you, Vern?
I was gonna say, for me, I was never into like RP forums or anything like that. I was a big like gamer kid, which, you know, it caters to like your imagination, but then it also until you get a bigger grasp of things, as you get older, it kind of puts you in the creative box of like, okay, anything outside of these bounds that the game has put into place isn't possible. That's like the easiest way I can describe it, which your brain knows isn't true like in the real world, but like when there's an invisible wall in the skybox or something, then like, okay, I can't go over here, so like that's a limiting version of thought. And I don't I remember exactly what it was. The thing that got me into like RPGs and like specifically tabletop stuff, it was actually a friend and coworker of mine, who I think still does the Taste of Dragons podcast. But we'll see if she ever wants to get. Like, she had some great D&D stories about her group who's been playing for years, and all the just kind of wacky things they would get into, and all the terrible things their DM would do to them because they were playing second edition, which is just like the meat grinder of systems if you're just not playing first edition. So all of that got me into like, what is, because I've always heard of D&D, but I never really knew what it was. So I was like, what's this thing? Looked it up a little bit. Didn't really get into any D&D podcasts or anything until after I'd actually been into it for a little while. And found Roll20 because I didn't really have anybody in my immediate vicinity who I could play with. So I'm like, hey, let me play online. And that's where I, went into character creation and be like, I can be creative. I haven't done this since I was a child. So I was big into martial arts at that point. So I was like, hey, let me create a half-orc monk because I wanna in Pathfinder, and basically make his backstory a kung fu movie where
So cute.
where he's got to like avenge his master or something. And I don't know if that says anything about me specifically. I think it started out like that, and it turned into some other stuff. It didn't really go into the
once you start to play.
yeah, it didn't really go into the like avenging the master type of thing too far, just because like that game didn't get too far in general. But more into like the half orc kind of stereotype of being kind of outcasted. And then playing through that sort of thing, which is, definitely something that I've been through before. I used to be super shy when I was much younger, so like public speaking in general was horrifying to me. So like that sort of feeling I'm very well acquainted with. So like playing that out while also being like a kung fu man was my impetus for that character, Tusk,
Very cute.
the half orc monk, which I brought back for another game and then put him on the shelf, and he's probably going to stay there forever.
I don't know if I'll ever stop playing my first character, because she's just so much of me. And, like, I'm going to get into some heavy shit right now, because it's... and I wanted to talk a little bit about, like, D&D as a way to kind of process trauma. And I'm not going to talk, obviously I'm not going to talk about my own, like, trauma in too much detail. That's, like, this is a fun podcast.
This is your forum, so whatever you want to, talk about, we're fine with it.
Well, let's talk about my character. Because Ro, as a concept, was a young human girl from what was conceptualized as a death cult and morphed into a pain cult, who uses her own blood and pain to facilitate her magic. And if you know where to look, that kind of obviously kind of translates to self-harm. And I guess my concept for that when I was making her was just sort of like working through my own feelings of my history with self-harm, and how I felt about it, and how it felt outside of my control, and also how it felt like it was something that was helping me, and my, feelings about my parents and my shitty childhood, with the, pain cults, air quotes. It's just a lot of, dark feelings that I just wanted to kind of get out, and this felt like a good place to do that. It felt like a safe way to kind of, I don't know if purge is the right way to say it, but just sort of...
Give it an outlet?
Yeah, an outlet. An outlet is a good way to say it. Because I had a lot of feelings about it, and not a lot of space to talk about it with other people. And this was a healthy way to talk about it, and a way to, make it more fun,
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it can sort of serve as a sort of, oh God, what's the word?
Therapy.
Yeah.
Catharsis.
Catharsis, that's the word.
I know that you and me, especially Lisa, have had a couple of sessions with RP where it has gotten pretty heavy.
We'll put it out there. We'll put it out there right now. I'm the DM in this situation, and Lisa and Katelyn are the players. And Lisa is now Lisa's character Dot is Katelyn character Ro, her adoptive mother, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we've landed on.
Yeah. So there's it's not just like, we're traveling band of adventurers or whatever. It's like, we're making a family.
We are all imaginary representations of our players' trauma, and we're vibing.
Really
we're just figuring out. We're just having a good time.
and that's what I mean. I think a lot of people don't realize how often people use their characters to kind of make an outlet and use it as catharsis for their own trauma. And I think it's great. I think it's amazing, like, what that kind of stuff can do. And it's great that it can be a silly place, too, that you can just, because, like, obviously, I love to fuck around and, get up into shenanigans.
Do
and you know me.
silly things as well.
Yes, I love that.
Just banish people every now and again.
I love that. I love
sometimes they deserve to be banished.
I don't think a lot of them did.
It's only for 5 minutes. They'll be fine.
It's only for 1 minute.
It's only for 1 minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very disorienting.
But I'm very happy to have found, like, not only this community but an outlet for this, where it's just like I'm able to be creative, which is not something that I had really explored before. And also, something healthy to do with something that used to be very unhealthy. And D&D really opened up my world after that, because someone at work, and I work at Whole Foods, by the way, helped me. They were like, well, you should go to Tate's, which is the local comic book shop. And they play D&D usually on Wednesdays, and you should go, and that it should be fun. Let me tell you right now, Varun, do you know who it is?
Is it Saul?
No. It's Saul's partner.
Yes, I know them as well.
And that's why I was like, this world is extremely small, because this was long before I knew Saul. This was long before I knew you. This was about, like, 4 years ago. I started going. Avon told me to go to Tate's, and I started going. And I met several friends at Tate's that I started playing outside of Tate's, because Tate's had served its purpose. And I didn't want to play there anymore. But, I also met my roommates, who almost immediately asked me to move in with them. And I got away from my parents' house and was able to, live fully on my own and start to kind of heal from my past trauma. And after that, our mutual friend, Melissa, asked me if I would like to join a game, and which was our game. And I started to, really, really explore Ro as a character, and it's been really, really good. D&D has really, really done a lot of good things for me.
Yeah, I'm like super appreciative that you felt that, like, this game that I had been previously running, and then a spot opened up, that you felt that you could bring that, just bring your kind of history into the game. And I think
there really wasn't any other character I could have, because that was the one that I vibed the most with.
Okay.
She's just my baby. She's just like,
she's your imaginary baby.
Yeah. It's just she's someone I hadn't had a chance to fully explore, and I felt like I could fully explore her with you.
Awesome. And I think we're gonna get there, like, in this coming year now.
Oh yeah, no, you've helped me flesh her out. You've helped me flesh her out intensely. Like, the ideas that you've had have helped me really kind of make her into something I had never thought of before. It's been great.
And yeah, we've seen Ro evolve from just like basically like a tiny gremlin girl to
absolutely
a little feral child.
Yeah, to more. Yeah, just more like worldly, caring about things. Like
she's almost like the moral.
Family.
And she's kind of become the moral center for the moral compass for our group.
Oh yeah, we've had a couple of moments in our campaign where I've been like, hey, that's not right.
That thing you just did? Not cool.
Not cool, bro. We can say it right now. I have a list of things that I definitely want to like ask you, and one of them, the big ones, is just like favorite RP moments. And it doesn't have to be Rose specific, but I think Rose, like your core. Like what's been like one of your standout like moments that you've either been involved in or you've been witness to? Because that's the sort of thing we want to talk about.
There are a couple. One with Ro was our first session when we had rolled and I had ended up getting like a shit ton of money. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know how we got on it, but I was like, I don't know how money works.
Because
you've been raised
one of the
by
first
cult, and then
one of the first interactions we had with you was you getting swindled by a merchant who was trying to sell you a single apple for a platinum.
Yeah, I had a bag full of platinum, and I was like, here
and no
you go,
concept of what
coin.
Money is.
And both you and the other kind of mom of the group, Kahalia, the Asimar fighter, were like, no, so this is, these coins have values, and this is the values, and I'm like, yep, I didn't take in any of that. That didn't register.
Yeah, and it's this strange thing of like, you were raised by this death cult, so they provided everything for you, so you had no conception of money, but then at some point you got away from them and stole a bunch of money on the way out. Mm-hmm. And then you get out into the world and you're like, okay, yeah, this is used for something, I think.
I see them giving these coins to people and getting things. And if I give a coin to someone, I could get something.
And then that starts to snowball into the party not wanting you to get swindled because they have to now teach you about what capitalism is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the whole moral center of our campaign is capitalism is hell.
That's our tagline.
That's your slogan.
That's our motto.
That's our slogan. Yeah.
Every time something happens, I'm like, little Ro is like, is this capitalism?
Everyone's really unhappy. Is this capitalism?
Yes. Capitalism is hell.
And that's the interesting thing, because Ro comes in as like this innocent blank slate who also has been through terrible trauma that slowly, unfolds. But you have to teach her what capitalism is. You have to teach her, how to take care of herself. And does she have an existential crisis when she starts to realize, like, what killing does to people or something?
And I think also one of the interesting parts that of like me as a player interacting with Ro is also like walking that line of like, yes, she is a naive little girl who grew up in a cult, and there are many things that she does not know, but there are also certain aspects where we don't have to she can take care of herself better than any of us could take care of her. Like, and so it's sometimes we'll have those moments where like I'm like, do I need to interfere? And then I give it just another second, and Rose got it, and I'm like, all right, no, it's good. She took care of that better than anything I could have done.
Fly, little bird.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I also liked a recent one when we met those Yetis, and I had like a How to Train Your Dragon moment with
Yes, Spaghetti!
Spaghetti the Yeti.
Oh, Spaghetti the Yeti, and then we met the babies, and I named them Meatball and Parmesan.
Although in that same interaction, there were 3 baby Yetis. And
listen, I did my best.
Listen. 2 out of 3 is a pretty good, that's a pretty good outcome. Okay, that's a success.
I did my best as a cleric and as a little girl who loves animals. Apparently, I was like, I'm gonna use all of our diamonds on these baby Yetis that died, and then one of our party members died immediately.
That was the most, like, insane thing I've ever seen happen. Because,
I was like, oh no, Ro is in big trouble.
You're a cleric with the ability to bring people back to life. You have the materials to do so.
And
so
I decided to use it on horses and yetis.
So you start frittering them all away. And then immediately, after you use up the last one of your party members dies. Not goes down, is dead.
Dead. Yep.
I fully expected someone be like, okay, give me all the spell components. You can't be trusted with them. You don't know how to use them properly.
Yeah.
And I
we got rationed out a handful of diamonds.
And
and
in a devil's bargain situation.
all of them were used on animals.
This is your fault. You handed them to a little girl. This is not
a little
my
girl
fault.
who can banish people, okay? Like, so this is what I mean. It's like, it's we're still very much, even though we've been traveling together for a while already, like, we're still very much trying to figure out, like, what can we let Ro take the reins on.
How much of a parent do I need to be here?
Exactly. And, like, for me, it's interesting because, like, the thing with Dot is, like, she has, like, mommy issues, and part of that is also, like, being a mother is kind of a nightmare for her. And so she just keeps...
And an NPC.
Yeah, and she just keeps getting these babies thrown into her arms, and she's like, oh god, I don't want this, but I'm gonna have to figure out how to do this. And so it's... there's just, like, an immediately, like... interesting dynamic. Like, you immediately give me something very interesting to work with in that, like, figuring out that balance, because I think that's just very true to the reality of figuring out what it is to be a parent.
It's like,
it's fun.
How
it's
much
great.
How much hands-off do you want to be, and how much do you want to say no? You know,
at what point do you
learn?
At what point do you go, okay, you're gonna hate me for doing this, but I'm going to take away this this thing from you until you can until you can prove that you can be responsible with it.
I don't think we've ever actually gotten to that point. Like, we've definitely gotten to the point where Ro has been scolded a few times, but never to, like, we gotta punish Ro for, like, a thing that she did.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one other thing that we know we want to talk about, Katelyn, that you were just recently a part of. But one thing I want to bring up to anyone who's going to be a guest here, if you want to get into it, is have you ever run a game? And if not, would you ever want to? And, just kind of talk about that. Was it a good experience, bad experience, that DM side sort of thing?
I have run a game. It was one of those Adventure League at Tate's, because they were always like, well, we don't have enough DMs, so we need someone for this table.
We keep mentioning Tate's, but for anyone who doesn't live in the South Florida area, it's one of the bigger gaming stores down here.
Yeah. It's also like a gigantic comic shop, too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a big Hulk statue. Come see the Hulk statue.
Did they have an Iron Man?
He's wearing a mask now. No, there's no Iron Man, but there's just a giant Hulk mask, and they made him a little mask that says Tate's on there.
But how was running the actual game?
I do not remember most of it. I remember there was a lot of crosstalk and people yelling at each other, which is, par for the course at Tate's. But I do remember that a couple times when I needed to get people's attention, I would go, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, and that, for some reason, worked.
The kindergartner method?
Yes, and I don't know, people have kindergartner instincts because they all looked at me.
Okay. I will,
Because it was,
gotta keep that one in my back pocket.
I was like, I wasn't gonna shout at them like, shut the fuck up. But for some reason, having like a cheery voice, just be like, hey guys.
So, so you don't remember most of it? Like, was it?
No, I do
was
not.
it
I don't
enjoyable,
remember
or
what.
would you want to do it again?
It was kind of enjoyable. It was a lot to keep track of, which is why I think I mentioned toward the beginning of the episode that I wanted to do a one page RPG, because those seem like a lot of fun, and there isn't a lot to keep track of, and it is a lot of like coming up with a story at like together on the fly. So, like, I'd be interested in doing that. I've been talking with another mutual friend, Saul, about doing that with our group at some point, maybe.
Okay.
It's all confidence. It's like self-confidence stuff. I'm like, I don't know. Well, maybe.
Oh, absolutely.
I think
That's definitely the biggest barrier to entry is really a confidence more than it is any actual like mechanical anything.
I think both of us can attest to this, but especially you, Lisa, because you've dealt with this more recently. Is just like working up the gumption to be like, okay, I'm like the dungeon master. I'm supposedly the guy with all the answers, or the person with all the answers, and getting together a bunch of people to do a game like that takes some cojones, and
That's why I think those one-page ones are good stepping stone, because they're just one-offs, the practice.
And
they usually lead to more of that, like, well, depending on which one you're doing. So, like, if you're doing something like Honey Heist, that sort of comedic tone, it lulls you into a sense of comfort, and it's not a false sense of comfort. It's just like it's very comforting to know that, like, even if it's messy, even if it is a mess, like, because it's a one page, it's usually comedic. It's got a comedic tone. It's got a comedic lilt. It'll be fun no matter what, and everybody's gonna have a good time, and you won't feel too bad.
Right.
You run like a Call of Cthulhu game badly, like, woof.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No. That's not my. No, I'm not ready for that shit.
Yeah.
I think you, like, with your storytelling ability, like me and Lisa can attest, you'd probably be a pretty good dungeon master.
It's you guys are gonna make me cry.
Oh.
Well, I
don't think that's in question.
Yeah, because you come up with very creative solutions for things, and sometimes the things that come out of your mouth, I'm just like, you're literally one of the funniest people I know. It's incredible. You're welcome. You're gonna
tell.
That was Melissa. Melissa did that.
But you keep bringing, but you kept it back up, and then you bring it up in like the most like insane opportunities to point out
capitalism.
Yes.
Is this capitalism?
Yeah.
Yes, sweaty.
A guard won't let you into a town. You banish him. Just walk on by.
I proved my strength. I did.
Yeah. No, you did exactly what he wanted you to do.
Yep. Yeah.
That guard can go argue with his mother.
You're a great, like, role player, great, like, creative mind. So yeah, I think, like, if you're ever inclined, like, yeah, do one of the small, like, one-page RPGs, get your kind of toe into that pool and see if, like, running something would be in your wheelhouse, something longer term, because, like, I think you'd be pretty good at it.
I think I'd like to. I'll send you guys some stuff, a couple of the one-page RPGs, and see what you guys think, what you want to play.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the big shit.
I was gonna say.
I was gonna ask, like, what about the games that you're in or you've been in that don't involve us?
I haven't really been in a lot, but what I wanted to talk about, because it looks like we're going kind of long.
I mean, there's one big game you've been involved in that we haven't been involved in.
Well, so I don't know how much any of your listeners are going to know about a little thing called Dungeons and Daddies, but I recently was a little bit involved with them because one of their recent arcs had a kind of trial arc, and because I was on the Patreon, I was able to kind of get in on, I guess it was like a raffle. They were like, email, and you could be randomly selected to be part of the jury process for this trial. And I was like, oh, what the hell? I probably won't be chosen. And what do you know? I was chosen.
There you go. You got that jury duty letter.
Yeah. It was actually not the first time that I have been kind of involved in this podcast, because I was
influencing it.
Yeah, not very much. Dungeons and Daddies, if you are part of the Patreon, you can send them items, names, places that they can use in their campaign. And I was like, oh, here's a stupid item that I think is just useless, that I think is very funny. And maybe they'll pick it. And what do you know? But they did, and that item was called the Belt of Pants. Which is a
what?
It was a belt that, as a bonus action, you can create an illusory set of pants.
Not a real set of pants, right?
Not a real one, but one that just looks like pants.
The Belt of Pants.
It's like, it's so sinister. just be walking around with nothing down there except the belt.
No one will know.
Nobody knows. The Emperor wishes.
But this one, we had to set up entire new Discord accounts because it had to be totally anonymous. Nobody had to know each other. We couldn't know our names. We had to be. I was juror number 3. Anthony fucked up immediately. Anthony Birch is the DM of Dungeons and Daddies, and he fucked up immediately and sent out, instead of 12 invites, he sent out 13. So we had 13 jurors.
Okay.
So we had 13. He was like, "This is fine in case there's a deadlock."
Yeah, that's what I meant to do.
I did this on purpose.
That's DM 101. I didn't fuck up. It was meant to be like this.
So for most of it, we were just sort of bullshitting in the Discord and talking to one another, and talking about the episode a little bit, because we didn't really start to deliberate, air quotes, until after the second episode of the trial dropped, and then we could deliberate on the arguments, and I'll get into that in a second. But one of the very first things I did when I got on there was ask for a evidence channel, so we could discuss evidence and away from all of the bullshit stuff that everyone's discussing. And Anthony did that, and I think I went a little bit mad with power because Anthony did something I asked him to do. And I was like, I suggest that Anthony should buy us lunch every day while we're on the jury. And all the other jurors were like, I second that. And I was like, yeah, that's a funny joke. On one of the after show podcasts, Anthony was like, so the jurors, when we got on the Discord, immediately unionized and demanded I buy them lunch.
You see? See what we're saying here?
You unionized
the jurors. And nearly derailed the proceedings.
No, but apparently everyone on the podcast thought that was very funny, so Anthony was like, a couple days before the deliberations began, was like, if you are comfortable with it, DM me your street address and your pizza order, and I will buy you pizza one time. I'm not buying 13 people. I'm not buying 13 people pizza for 2 weeks.
Awesome.
So that was how I conned a semi-famous person into buying me pizza.
That's fantastic.
That's so cool. This is a joke. This isn't gonna go anywhere. Hey, what do you want my address for?
Yeah, no. I was like, hey, Anthony, that was a joke. I was kidding. I was trying to be funny. And he was like, here's your pizza.
Commit to the bit.
Oh my god, that's
Yeah,
great.
no. I'm like, okay, I'll accept this. The deliberations, people took it a lot more seriously than I thought they would. We were like, in the episodes, they put forth arguments, and what we were meant to do was only listen to the arguments and not take in anything from the past episodes into account, and kind of deliberate whether the arguments put forth were valid or not valid. And if they were valid, then Anthony would roll a dice that would go towards a score on whether he would be guilty or not guilty.
Who was on trial, by the way? Is it the entire party? Or...
Glenn... No. It was just Glenn Close, which is Freddie Wong's character.
Glenn Close.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Continue.
And his charges were being a bad person and a bad dad.
Oh.
And in the end,
Heavy.
And there were several arguments that were put forth. I do not remember what all of them were, but under the charge of being a bad person, we found him not guilty, and under the charge of being a bad dad, we found him guilty.
Oh.
But that's only, it's not like we the jury, like, found him guilty overall. Those kind of arguments that went through only added dice values. So, like, the charge of bad dad had, like, a D20 attached to it. But something like Glenn loves his son and would die for him had a D10, and that's for their arguments. So they all have, like, dice assigned to them for their own arguments, for the defense and the prosecution, and Anthony rolled at the end, and unfortunately Glenn was found guilty anyway. And,
guilty overall.
Yes, guilty overall. I won't spoil what happened to Glenn because you'll have to listen to the episode for it. But yeah, that's what happened with the jury. Here's what happened with Freddie Wong and me, though, because towards the end, we were actually able to record ourselves reading the verdicts. I got one of the lines. I was able to read the verdict, on the charge of betting on child fights, we find the defendant, Glenn Close, the argument, something about the argument valid. You know, of course it's valid. He did bet on child fights.
Child fights? Well.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot going on in that sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually how they met one of the characters, Peyton.
Child fights.
But, yeah. It's the UFC, the unfortunate foster children.
Oh my god. I kind of want to listen to this now.
It's a great podcast,
boy.
and it's extremely funny. It's like, them and Dimension 20 are one of the only ones that, like, consistently make me cry with laughter.
Okay, so is that just it?
But,
yeah, what happened with you and Freddie Wong specifically?
Okay, so we got to record our lines, and he asked us if we would like to have, like, our names attached at the end, like, as credit. And some people said no, and some people were like, I'll give a pseudonym. I was like, no, I want that serotonin boost. I want my full name read.
Okay.
Give me that full name. And so I DM'd Freddie, and I was like, Freddie, is it okay if I give you my name now? And he's
Freddie,
like,
babe.
sure. And I said, okay. I said, okay, my name is Katelyn Marquard, and it was in type, obviously, like, I'm typing to him, and he's like, I'm gonna need a pronunciation on that. I'm like, it's okay, I get it, I've lived with my name my whole life. My name is weird and complicated, and it has a Q in it, and no one seems to know what to do with that. So I was like, it's Qua, with the, like, Q-U, Qua. So he's like, cool, I bet Shrek had helped with the pronunciation on that. And I said, yeah, with my people my age, but like my teachers wouldn't watch an animated movie if it like cured their disease. And that made him laugh. He like actually like typed out ha 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 ha. And again, I went mad with power. Because I was like, oh, I made him laugh. I can do it again. Because we carried on with the conversation for a bit, and he said something to the effect of, Shrek is one of the greatest movies of all time. It'll be remembered long after Pixar is forgotten. And I said, for sure. Shrek invented size kink. And then he tried to give me an out because he didn't acknowledge that. And he said something to the effect of, Smash Mouth is, like, great. It's one of the best bands of all time. And I said, for sure. I doubled down. Guys, I doubled down. I was like, no, you don't understand. I'm very funny. I didn't actually say that, but that was in my head. I said,
Stand, Freddy.
Didn't they offer to go down on DJ Khaled's wife? Iconic. And then he stopped talking to me.
Oh my god.
You were at the bridge too far for Freddie Wong.
I immediately texted our friend Melissa, and I was like, Melissa, this is what happened. Should I apologize?
Melissa, I got blocked by Freddie Wong. Let me tell you what happened.
He didn't block me, and actually my name was the first one read at the end of the episode.
Shout out.
And he never...
I was gonna say, did he pronounce your name wrong on purpose?
No, it was pronounced correctly. But he didn't mention that interaction in like the after show or anything like that. But I was like, that is, I hope
you
that
know
lives
what
on
happened
within him. You know what
yeah,
happened.
absolutely.
Freddie, you know what happened, Freddie. This is between you and me.
Oh my god.
I'm afraid he thinks I'm like a predator. That's not one but two sexual Shrek jokes in a row.
Oh, jeez.
Oh my god.
So, if you guys think, like, Lisa, you said I was the funniest person you know, I hope that lives up to that.
Oh, it absolutely does.
This is why we wanted you on first. I don't think anyone's gonna top the Freddie Wong Shrek sex joke stories here.
I talked to my best friend, and she's like, that's so like you. I'm like, is it? And she's like, yeah, that's how you talk to your friends, but the problem is that wasn't your friends, that was a stranger.
Yeah. Yeah. Points.
It's on point. Yep. Oh my god.
Oh boy.
Oh fuck.
Jeez.
Oh my god.
There's other stuff I have on my list to ask, but I don't know if it even matters.
I don't think we can follow that. No.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
Yeah, I knew
Caitlin,
that would be like a bomb.
Yeah, you broke me. You've broken me.
You are a treasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
National treasure.
I'm very glad that you guys are my friends.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, happy to have you.
It is our pleasure. It is absolutely our pleasure.
Truly. Oh god.
We should do an
Okay.
actual outro.
How do we even end this now?
Fuck.
Well,
I'm sorry I broke you.
Well, Caitlin, as always, as ever, it's just a delight to just speak to you at all.
Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being
Absolutely, thank you for entertaining us.
Thank you for having me.
our
Thank you
for
for
having me so much.
Thank you for suffering through all of our 1,000 technical difficulties.
Yes.
Glad that we finally were able to get here and actually do this.
Yes, and we may we may have you on for another episode at some point if more
I
stuff
love that.
happens.
Yeah.
And we just check in. Where's Caitlin at?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe
Did
we'll
she
pick
do
your
anything
brain.
Outrageous again? Did she talk to another celebrity?
How many Shrek sex jokes has she made between the last episode and the new one?
I'll let you know. I'll come back.
Keep a tally.
That'll be a follow-up.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, let's do an actual outro. Lisa, again, I will give it to you, and then we'll do the other bits.
As always, as ever, this has been Oops All Dragons. I have been Lisa. That has been Varun. We don't know what we're going to talk about next. And that has been Caitlin, and she's been an absolute delight as always, and we're probably going to have her back. Get used to it. And we get to do that because this is our podcast, and we can invite whoever we want on here.
Get used to the guest thing.
Absolutely. Do you have any idea what we're going to be talking about next, Varun?
I think it's just I don't think there's any burning topics from normal D&D stuff that I want to touch on. Is that your dog, Caitlin?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No.
Stop it.
But
Stop it.
With their secondary guest, Belle.
Yeah. But next episode, I think we'll just find another guest because these guest episodes are fun. Yeah, I think we'll go from there. We'll find whoever that next person. We might have Noel on next. Jeez, he's got a lot of stuff going on.
Ooh.
We'll see. So
That'll be fun.
So we'll probably just aim for another guest episode next and go on from there.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll see y'all next time. Bye. Oops All Dragons is a group effort. Our show is edited by Noel Hernandez. Our theme was composed by Brendan Lyons. And our logo art is by Azif On Q. Links to more of their work and their social media will be in the show notes.